we released this report, explaining international broadband leadership, because we wanted to actually bring some light to this debate. There's an awful lot of heat in this debate. Is the U.S. behind or not? Why are we behind? What's going on in other countries? And what we found was very little analysis up to this point about why other countries were ahead and why we were behind, and how much of it's policy, how much of it's non-policy factors. And what we found was, as you might expect, that the story is more complicated than most people say. Policy is not the only reason we're behind. Things like urban density and other factors, number of people with computers play a role in how much we can do just on our own. That if we had the same level of digital adoption and digital literacy as the top countries, and assuming that the same broadband ratio of computer and literacy, we would be among one of the top countries in the world in broadband. So what that really means is our challenge is helping a lot of the people in the U.S. who either don't have computers or don't have broadband to be able to learn how to use them, to be able to understand why it's important, and to make sure there's applications that are working for those people. And there are a number of groups around the country, lots and lots of nonprofit civic groups and public-private partnerships that are working on this. One of them is One Economy, a very, very good group that's working with low-income people all around the country. But there are other groups that are working with senior citizens and students and the like. But the challenge here is to bring that to scale. We're sort of like de Tocqueville argued, we're good at civic associations. That's a real strength of the U.S., particularly in this area, but you got to bring them to scale. We looked at this, we did a statistical analysis of the 30 OECD countries and why the rankings were the way they are. And it turns out a lot of the variance in the rankings comes from non-policy factors. So things like per capita income, things like the number of internet users, things like price. Now, maybe price is a policy factor, maybe it's not, but also things like urbanicity. So in other words, if you're a country with a high level of population density, you're going to do better on broadband than if you're a country where it's more spread out like Canada and the US are. Those things make a difference. We shouldn't use them as excuses. They're real. They make it a little bit more of a challenge here. But we also at the same time shouldn't just say, well, it's all policy. We could be number one if we wanted to. We have a bigger challenge here in the U.S. One of the things that we looked at is a thing called loop length, local loop length. In other words, how long is the average wire between the central office and the home? And we've got the longest loop lengths in the world of the countries we were able to find. And that, again, makes it harder to do here. Again, though, is that maybe that means we just got to step up to the plate more and be more aggressive on our policy efforts.